Hey guys, Brian delivers you the goods here. I'm returning to you this afternoon again for another album review for the Brownings Omni that I got a chance to check out for myself, see what I was going to think of this record overall. So I'm going to discuss what I listened to for the Brownings new record, Omni, and let you know my thoughts on their this album overall. So let's dive into this album review now. Basically, with what I've listened to with this, I gotta say, I'm really interested in just the overall electronic work in this. I'm interested, but I have a few critiques with this record. So, uh, when it comes to the first song, "Wake Up," it starts off pretty well, but Johnny McBree, I think his name is, still with the band. I think the overall execution of this was alright for what it went for. Uh, so I'd give it a 4.75 out of 5. I don't necessarily hate it. It's pretty good for the opening track for a minute and 12 seconds. So you're not in for much of a track, but it's fine for what it is. So 4.75 out of 5. Hive Mind, I think, was a single for this record, if I remember correctly. Pretty good song in its own way. Not one of my personal favorites from the record, but it's still enjoyable for a listen. It's just some of it seems a little generic in a way. Not terrible, but good generic in a way. So 4.75 out of 5. Fed Up is another track that I enjoyed for the most part. I think the screaming vocals from Johnny sound really good because I think he's the guy that does the screaming vocals. But overall, it just execution wise, it performed alright. So another 4.75 out of 5. Misery EXE featuring Nick Nocturnal, one of the YouTubers that I do follow actually. Um, he's a very big YouTuber now. He's been collabing with a lot of metal musicians. So basically, I think this track was pretty good. Not one of my favorites. They relied on the EDM stuff, the electronic work, a little too much. But I think with this track, it played it safe in a pretty good way. So this is a strong 4.75 out of 5. Omni featuring The Defect was a pretty good track. The opening part to it was pretty good, where the girl is singing it. It sounds really good for how it is. And she does it in the chorus too, and it sounds strong. And Johnny's screaming vocals in this track do work for this one. So another 4.75 out of 5. Then you have Deceiver, which is a pretty good track in its own way. The screaming vocals and the breakdowns are pretty good. And just Johnny's screaming vocals, like I said, pretty good. Um, and guitar work and drum work, it's really heavy. So I really like this from the Browning. So 4.75 out of 5. Apollo is another track that plays it safe but in a good way. So this is a 4.75 out of 5. It's not that I hate these songs, it's just they're pretty good in their own way, but they have a few generic moments where I think it plays it safe but in a good way. So it's not terrible of a record. So 4.75 out of 5 for Apollo. The screaming vocals from Johnny were pretty good. Poison was another strong track that I enjoyed. I really did dig this track for how it sounded. This album is an acquired taste to some listeners. Not a lot of people are going to like it, but some people might think it's pretty good from the Browning, but not one of their best. But still, Poison is a 4.75 out of 5. Come to Grips with Death and the End is the interlude track going into Soul Drift. The closing track is Soul Drift. But overall, it sounds really nice from Johnny's vocals, and the overall execution of the electronic work did pretty well in this one. So I'd give this one a 5 out of 5. I really enjoyed this one. For a minute and 28 seconds, you're in for a good interlude. And finally, we get to Soul Drift. Sorry about my congestion. Soul Drift is the closing track to this record, and it is a strong 2 minute and 47-second song in its own way. I mean, there's some critiques with the electronic work, but I think it's alright for what it is. So 4.75 out of 5. So overall, production, mixing, and execution wise, I think the Browning Omni was a pretty good record. Definitely worth checking out to see what you think of it for yourself. It's not everyone's acquired taste, but to some listeners it might be up their alley. If you listen to like Icy Stars and all them, they're not. I'm not comparing them to Icy Stars because they're their own sound. The Browning is, but with the metalcore, deathcore, and electronic work, it works for this record. Few critiques, but not anything too bad. So if I were to give the Browning Omni their new album a score, it's only like a 27-minute record, to be honest. It's not very long. 26 minutes and 50 seconds or something like that. I'm going to give the Browning Omni an 8.5 out of 10. Pretty good record. Plays it on the safe side and in a good way. It's worth checking out to see what you think of it for yourself. Because you never know. You might find this interesting, you might not. It depends on the listener and what they think of it overall. But for me, I do dig this, and it's worth checking out, in my opinion. So 8.5 out of 10 for Omni by the Browning. Thank you for watching this album review this afternoon.